Dolphins favored by 13.5. Do they know Antonio Pierce is undefeated?
I think they do, yeah.
Wow.
I think they know. I think that's the kind of thing that wouldn't escape the man in Vegas.
You think?
Yeah.
Man, it's the unbelievable part of Miami being at home is they've been at home against the worst teams that they play.
Yeah.
And they've been on the road in their most challenging games. And look, I like the way the Raiders are playing right now. But we also have to be realistic. They're 2-0 against Tommy DeVito and the Giants and Zach Wilson and the Jets.
Yes.
The New Yorks.
The New Yorks.
Or New Jerseys. So now going to Miami, where, of course, the most important analytical stat that I have to remind everybody, the Miami Dolphins are averaging 43.5 points in the city of Miami and 22.2 points in all other cities in the world. And they're going to be in Miami.
It's also, I mean, the numbers are even more stark, I think, when it's good teams versus bad teams, right? Like,
which, again, I said, like, coincides with in Miami, out of Miami.
Right, I think they're even bigger just in terms of winning record versus losing record.
Yeah. Because they beat the Chargers in L.A. and scored a lot of points against bad teams.
So, the Raiders, you've got Aiden O'Connell. He didn't play well against the Jets. On the other hand, everybody plays badly against the Jets, so it's kind of harsh to hold that against him, I think. The Giants game, I mean, you would assume his baseline is probably somewhere between his performance against the Giants and his performance against the Jets, right? Somewhere in the middle there is the real Aiden O'Connell this season. And that's workable. I mean, they've done a decent job running the ball with Josh Jacobs since they made the change. I think Aiden O'Connell has shown he can be functional. He's not going to look like he did that first game against the Chargers, where he had a ton of turnover-worthy plays, even if he only had one interception, and a bunch of sacks. He got sacked 3 times against the Jets, but again, Jets, best pass rush in the NFL, or one of them, certainly top 3. So I think Aiden O'Connell will probably do okay against the Dolphins defense and Vic Fangio. And if they can run the ball, I mean, their offense should function. Like, I don't think we'll see another game where they're scoring 16. It's the thing Salah was saying, right? The race to 20 points wins this game. I think the Raiders can score more than 20 points against Miami.
Against Miami,
yes.
All right. I will say that's interesting for whether we talk about the run game here. Antonio Pierce saying they're gonna lean on Josh Jacobs. They're gonna run the ball. The statement I said earlier in this show about the Eagles and what I said about the Eagles when they were playing the Dolphins. If you're going to get Josh Jacobs 25 to 30 carries, and a lot of that is not just game plan oriented. It has to be a game flow issue as well. Like if Miami gets up 14-0, which they do a lot at home, the Raiders aren't going to be able to run the ball 25, 30 times. And then they're going to come back and say, we win when we give Josh Jacobs 25 carries. We're going to do that more often. But if they keep it close, they will grind it out. And Jacobs is that type of guy who will get you 3. He'll get you 4. It'll be 3rd and 1. You convert. And they put together those long drives. And again, I think you can steal a possession from the Dolphins if the game doesn't get out of hand early.
Do you think teams get suckered into that too much, though? Like, oh no, we're 2 touchdowns down. Time to abandon the run game and throw the game script out of the window. We got to keep pace. A lot of ball game left, Steve.
Yeah.
Like we've seen so many times, right, that 2 touchdowns isn't actually that much. If you if you score, even if it takes you 10 minutes, and eats up an entire quarter or whatever, if you get the stop the next drive, you get the ball back, and now you're only down a touchdown with the ball. Like, it's nothing. So I think you're right. Yeah. As soon as you get these teams where as soon as it's like 14-point deficit, it's like, crap, we can never run the ball again. We got to pass. And now you're just playing into the panic, and you just amplify it. You just pour gas on the deficit by abandoning the only way you have of actually keeping this game close, which is to execute the offense you want to execute.
The only team I remember offhand who didn't do that, remember the Titans? They had some ridiculous comeback. Maybe it was against Seattle, and they just kept running Derrick Henry.
Right.
And he ran for 30 carries, and he did his usual, like, I'm going to break one in the fourth quarter for 60 yards because you just kept giving it to me. So our guy Brad Spielberger, the other night, somebody went for 2 early, and he was asking the question on Twitter, why are they doing this? Because the scoreboard's this and that, and it's like the second quarter. And I was thinking, I don't think it was the Bills go for 2.
It was the the penalty that makes
where they said, we're going to go for 2 because we had a penalty that moved the ball to the 1. So I think early in the game, you don't play the scoreboard. All you're trying to do is maximize points. You don't make 2-point decisions based off what the score is. You don't make play call decisions based off what the score is, unless it's 28-0 maybe. But the goal is to maximize points. And if you're the Raiders, as we saw the other night, if Aiden O'Connell has to drop back 40 or 50 times and he's going to get sacked 7 or 8 times, you're not going to maximize points probably. Mm-hmm. So part of scoring as many points as you can as the Raiders right now probably involves a lot of Josh Jacobs. So in this case, yeah, I get it. You probably have to stick with it. You don't make game flow decisions based off the score that early in the game. You have to just put as many points on the board as possible.
Yeah, I mean, if Miami gets up 14-0, I think the Raiders would be making a mistake to just abandon whatever their script is and try and keep pace. They're not going to forget winning. They're not going to hang in the game by doing that. You need to stick with the game plan that you want to execute, which will be, a lot of running the ball, Josh Jacobs, etc. I just think teams are way too quick to look at the deficit and go, oh no, we have to throw everything out the window and pass. You can't keep running the ball from this point. So I think that's the only way the Raiders are hanging in this game, is if they can move the ball, even if it's painstakingly on offense.
I've been impressed with the Raiders' defense. I don't know if it's just because my expectations were so low, because they've done pretty well against not so great offenses, but they're going to have to play the Chiefs twice still. They have to play the Dolphins this week. I think it's a great test for this Raiders defense to see if they are capable of hanging with some of the better teams, especially in Miami. I'm not sure that they can. I don't know if they have the horses in the secondary, even though Marcus Peters is, making plays on the ball. And I just don't think him and Amik Robertson and Hobbs, I don't think they have the speed to hang with Miami on the turf in Miami. 13.5 is a lot of points, though.
I wonder what impact Max Crosby can have. Like, the weakest guy on that offensive line for the Dolphins is probably still at right tackle, but Tua averages the fastest average time to throw in the NFL. That's going to really limit the number of plays where Max Crosby can actually make an impact, and obviously he's the best player that the Raiders have on defense.
All right, man, 13.5 points. It's a bunch.
It is.
But that's how Miami's been playing this year. Raiders still playing with that interim head coach juice.
Yeah, I feel like Miami is the type of team that, we've seen they're the type of team that can run up scores on teams that aren't great. So I'm going to go with them covering 2 touchdowns.
From what we're going to learn from these teams, Miami's closing in on Cowboys status of they're beating up the bad teams.
Right.
Let me see you beat the good teams more than once, right, and be consistent. So we're still a couple weeks away from more of those data points I think for the Dolphins.